All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something truly incredible and honestly a little unsettling. We're stepping straight into a grim, dark philosophical fable centered around a figure known as the Pale Grammarian. We're going to unpack his deeply cynical worldview and explore this massive, chilling warning about the eternal struggle between order and chaos, and what actually happens when we try to engineer away the messiness of life. So right off the bat, we meet the architect, the last thinker, and he's sitting upon this desolate throne. He's looking out over everything he's built, and he realizes a terrifying truth. He has successfully translated all of existence into a cold, beautifully cataloged zero. His runes burn with his will, but they don't give off any warmth. He's wearing this crimson mask that has literally grafted to his flesh, locking him into a permanent, unblinking agony. It's just such a powerful graphic novel-style image of a creator totally trapped by his own absolute control. Okay, let's move into part 1, the Pale Grammarian's vision. To really understand this architect, we have to look through his distinctly Nietzschean lens. He looked at biological life and saw what he called a disease of becoming. To him, the erratic, messy nature of life, the sheer agony of individual choice, and the pain of mortality, all of it was just this blood-slicked chaos. And well, what do you do with a severe disease? You apply a surgical, absolute cure. He literally wanted to kill the patient with the absolute fatality of order, just to stop the pain of existing. Now, this creates a deeply tragic trade-off. On one hand, you have biological vitality. Sure, it's erratic, it decays, it's messy, but it possesses this vibrant, beating beauty. On the other hand, you have the architect's promised solution, which is machine perfection, a beautifully cataloged zero, held together by a rigid lattice of pure reason. In his mind, stripping away all that decay was absolutely worth the cost of the coldness. He was totally willing to trade a vibrant, messy life for sterile, promised safety. Let's see how he actually builds this in part 2, constructing the logical tomb. The ultimate creation to cure this so-called disease was the monolith of reason. And what's fascinating is the architect didn't see this as a prison at all. He saw it as an act of cosmic hygiene. He wanted to just clear away the tangled brush of the Dionysian pulse, that wild, unpredictable, passionate drive of life, so that truth could finally stand perfectly still in his lattice of pure reason. It's a beautifully designed tomb, sure, but it's entirely free from the decadence of erratic hunger and biological rot. I mean, he went so far as to literally hammer his runes into the stars, forcing his rigid logic onto the cosmos itself, just to stop death. But look at the price here. The absolute fatality of his order is exactly what grafted his soul to that permanent agony under his crimson mask. By freezing everything to save it from dying, he essentially eradicated everything that actually made it alive in the first place. Which naturally brings us to part 3, Rise of the Golden Tarantula. Because, you can't just pave over chaos without sparking a reaction. Born right out of the shadows of the architect's clockwork forge comes this crawling malice known as the Tarantula philosophy. Now, while the architect represents this oppressive top-down order, the golden tarantula is a parasite born entirely from resentment. It acts as the very syntax of the dirt. It doesn't want to build a monolith. No, it just utilizes the exhaustion of the architect's rigid system to drag everything down to a hollow, universal equality in the mud. It is the ultimate leveling. And the tarantula just brutally mocks this sterile creation. The architect really thought he was saving humanity's soaring champions from the agony of choice. But the grim reality? Those champions are now just porcelain-skinned cogs. They don't soar anymore. They just tick. And that mindless ticking is literally the only music allowed in this perfectly logical, entirely dead kingdom. The tarantula thrives simply because the architect did all the hard work of breaking the human spirit for it. So, on the surface, they appear completely opposed, right? But they actually share this twisted, symbiotic partnership that keeps this logical tomb running. The architect provides the rigid structure, the cosmic hygiene, and the iron cages of pure reason. And then the tarantula uses those exact same cages to inject its amber venom of hollow equality. It's like the architect gives them the structure, and the tarantula provides the resentment that ensures no one can ever look down on anyone else, because everyone is stuck together in the mud. Now for the inevitable downfall, part 4, Collapse of the Architect. Look, you can only sustain absolute perfection for so long. The pale grammarian successfully cured the disease of becoming, and he built his monolith. But eventually, he starts to buckle under what the text beautifully calls the corpse weight of grammar. His perfectly sharp Apollonian blade of logic becomes jagged, destroyed by the friction of its own structural arrogance. The system is just so rigid, so insanely heavy, that the architect himself gets crushed beneath the math of his own making. And here is where the tragedy really reaches its climax. Completely exhausted, the architect actually finds relief in his own defeat. The text compares him to the Nietzschean concept of the ugliest man, someone who is just so profoundly tired that they find comfort in submission. He just stops fighting. He lets his crimson mask drink the logic of the maw, becoming a submissive witness to negation. He stops pretending the void is a puzzle to be solved, and as the whole stage collapses around him, he's finally ready to just joyfully applaud the zero. This leads us to our chilling epilogue in Part 5, The Flawless Industrial Hive. So what actually happens when the creator surrenders but his machine just keeps running? Well, we are left with the iron parish of Eisenheim, this flawless, completely horrifying industrial hive. You've got these pale weavers scurrying across iron girders, monitoring a populace that literally traded its soul for safety. The people here, mockingly called the last man Übermenschen, they're bound as literal cogs. There is no more erratic beauty, no more vitality of self-overcoming. The iridescent life force of dreaming has been completely extracted from them. All that's left is a beautifully cataloged zero, defined by a deafening, geometric silence. It's literally the sound of the void finally winning. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought today. As we look at the pale grammarian's tragic fable, we kind of have to look in the mirror. In our own modern pursuit of algorithmic perfection, predictability, and absolute safety, are we slowly extracting our own iridescent life force? By trying to engineer away the messy, erratic beauty of human life, are we quietly stepping into our very own logical tomb? It's definitely a question worth asking before we find ourselves applauding the zero. Thanks for exploring this incredibly dark, fascinating text with me.